I'm going to call this meeting of the Newington Board of Education to order at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, March 14th, 2018. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are going to move on to presentation of awards and proclamation. Today is actually Board Appreciation Month recognition by the schools for us. Nice surprise for our new board members who didn't know this was a thing. So according to the notes that were handed to me, we are starting with Anna Reynolds and Mr. Smith and some of his students. So come on up, and you just have to press the microphone for it to turn on. There's a button right at the bottom that you push in.
Okay. We're actually coming up for all 4 elementary schools, so these 4 will speak, and then we'll use the other 4 students to help pass out the things.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Biestrad, and I am here tonight with fellow students from elementary schools in Newington. On behalf of the students in elementary schools, we would like to thank you for everything that you do for the children in Newington.
We know that you have a very challenging and difficult job, and we would like to show our appreciation with a small gift from each of the elementary schools. At Anna Reynolds, I, along with some of my classmates, have created a colorful piece of artwork using the first letter of your last name.
The students at Chafee Elementary School have created ceramic cardinals for you. John Patterson Elementary School would like to present you with clay sunflower forms. And Elizabeth Green Elementary School would like to present you with beautiful decorative plates that are designed with an ocean theme. We also wanted to give a special thank you to the art teachers for their help in creating the gifts for you. We hope you enjoy your gifts, and again, we thank you for everything that you do for the students in Newington. My name is Mila Stoser, and I am in 3rd grade, and I go to Anna Reynolds School. My name is Isabella Caetano. I'm in 3rd grade, and I go to Anna Reynolds Elementary School. My name is Daniel Biestrad. I am in 3rd grade also, and I go to Anna Reynolds.
My name is Andrew Almani, and I am in 3rd grade, and I go to Anna Reynolds School.
My name is Kira Salvador, and I'm in grade 4, and I go to Elizabeth Green Elementary School.
My name is Ariana Sanchez, and I'm in 4th grade, and I go to Elizabeth Green Elementary School.
My name is Julia Singh, and I go to 4th grade at Elizabeth Green Elementary School.
My name is Mariana Tellis, and I'm in 4th grade, and I go to Elizabeth Green Elementary School.
Thank you all so much. I do want to give you, I know that you like to have your students talk for you, but if any of the principals wanted to say anything, you're more than welcome to before we move on to the upper levels. Seeing no takers. We will move to John Wallace, and I saw Mr. Diaz back there with some students, so come on up.
Good evening. I'm Daniel Dias, the principal at John Wallace Middle School. So tonight we actually are presenting each of our board members with a Pride Award. If you look at your table, I believe you should have that in front of you. So we at John Wallace issue Pride Awards every month to our students, and that is for students who exemplify what we talk about at Wallace, and we're going to have our student representative share with you why you earned those Pride Awards tonight. You also have a box in there with some treats in the shape of the John Wallace paw that we also have for you tonight. So what I'm going to do is introduce, we have our Student Senate representatives. We have our President Alex Freeman and our Vice Presidents Mena Majoub and Lily Amaral. They're going to explain to you why you earned a Pride Award tonight from John Wallace. So on behalf of our about 700 students, they're going to represent us and issue you a Pride Award.
Today is my great honor and pleasure to thank the Board of Education for all the hard work you do to ensure that we have a good school year. The Wallace Wildcats would like to present you, which is included in the John Wallace Pride Award. Thank you for being role models and showing us what each letter in the Pride means.
P for preparation. The Board of Education helps us be prepared by planning out our school year, which helps the school year run smoothly. For example, you help us be prepared by hiring the best teachers that help us have the greatest education possible. You also plan and choose activities in our schools that are in the best interest for all students.
R for respect. The Board of Education always celebrates all of our differences and embraces our differences. This in turn helps us feel comfortable and proud to be part of Newington schools. You respect us because you meet throughout the year to make changes when needed to provide us with the best education possible.
I for integrity. The Board of Education values the relationships with students and teachers. They work behind the scenes to ensure our safety and plan throughout the year. We can trust that if there's a problem, you'll work hard to solve it.
D for determination. The Board of Education is determined to design and make programs for us that allow us to grow as students as well as become better citizens. You are also determined to make sure that our school is a safe place for everyone to think and learn.
E for excellence. The Board of Education is always helping us to be the best that we can be, whether it is to be encouraging us or celebrating our academic achievements with the Outstanding Student of the Month events. You are always cheering us on to try our best and make our school a great place.
Thank you for being great examples and show what the Wallace Pride means, and to help us with all the hard work you do.
Thank you very much. Next is Martin Kellogg, and I see Ms. Ciano back there with, who I believe is the president of their student council.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education and invited guests. My name is Lila Tahirovic, and I'm the president of Martin Kellogg Middle School Student Council, and this is Anson Fon, the vice president of the Student Council. We would like to take a few minutes to express our thanks and appreciation for the support the board provides to the students in Newington. You give the teachers the tools to help us become better students as well as positive productive citizens. With your help and the help of our teachers, you have made Newington a great place to go to school.
Please accept this gift from the students at Martin Kellogg as a sign of our gratitude for all that you do. Our gift is a potted plant with our school logo, every student, every day. Printed on the plot as well as our display of our 4 pillars: responsibility, respect, integrity, and pride. The staff and students at Kellogg aspire to reach those pillars every day, and the focus at our school is on every student succeeding every day. So again, thank you for all of the time and energy you devote to making our schools great places to learn and grow.
Thank you very much. And Newington High School with Mrs. Tigno and Lucas.
Sorry, good evening, everybody. The gifts from the high school include some delicious baked goods that I just have to warn you there are nuts in a few of the packages. Mr. Pesca warned me, almonds and peanut butter on a few of the cookies. So if you do have a nut allergy, please be aware. But, so yes, we have some delicious baked goods from our culinary department and Mr. Pesca. Some Family of Learners coasters, kind pins that Student Council got for our Kindness Week that took place earlier in the month, and a Frisbee embroidered with our Newington High School logo. Just to speak to some of the wonderful attributes of the Board of Education, former principal Mr. Wanker once told me in a group of students that the most important quality of any leader is to serve, meaning that you are there to do the work with no reward other than knowing that what you have done will make a difference. And that difference may take years and even decades to come to fruition, but it will likely come in the form of smart, intelligent, driven, emboldened, caring, and thoughtful young people who will set out and change this world because of the diligence on this board. So for all the thank yous that you didn't get, that you should have, thank you. And for all the work that you do to keep our schools going, we could not be more grateful. So enjoy these small gifts of our gratitude. They pale in comparison to the work that you do for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. And there is one more present, and I'll turn that over to Mrs. Guyan.
I just brought in a little something for our student board members because they participate. They're active members of our board, and we appreciate all of the work that they do. So thank you both for being here and being contributing members.
And maybe you should thank the chef.
Yeah, and I would also like to thank my daughter Macy for helping me with the baking and the preparation.
I'll just turn it to board comment on the presentations this evening. Dr. Braverman.
Fall off my chair would not be. I want to thank you all. You have no idea. I bring we eat the treats, right? Probably tonight and tomorrow. But all the other things that you give us, the flowers and the cups and the mugs and the pencils, I bring to my office and I look at them all through the day, and I remember that at night that I have another life besides my regular job at Central. And it warms my heart every day. So I have things from 10 years worth, and this will be number 11. So thank you all for thinking of us. It means a lot to every one of us, for sure. Thank you.
Mr. Vasella.
I guess I just have to say wow every year, because we sit around the table and we work and we do what we have to do. And sometimes you do get a little overwhelmed with the idea of being here till 12:30 doing a budget and, getting home, getting up the next day and go to work. And then you guys come in and it's like, okay, it's worth it. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody, for all the gifts. It is fun. I totally forgot that this was happening tonight, and it was one of those nights where it's like, okay, I gotta go, let's go, get out of the house. And then I got here, and I'm like, oh, how nice! And it was really lovely, and everything's really precious, and it's all from your heart, and we just totally appreciate that, and thank you all so very much.
Well, this is awkward. This third time that you guys have honored me with such gifts, and every year I'm overwhelmed. I still have my favorite electrical plate from the last year, and I have my little wind chimes still in my backyard that are still making wonderful, beautiful noise. this overwhelms me. And to be very frank with you, I'm humbled and really do enjoy the fact of knowing, as Mr. Hole had identified, is the fact that you guys will become our future leaders. And one day I hope that you're sitting in my spot helping the next generation that's coming along. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank all the students. It's a pleasure serving you, the teachers, and my fellow board members. And thank you very much for these wonderful gifts. And looks like we're going to be chowing down here too with all these goodies. So thank you again, and wish you a very successful year.
So being new, we got the minutes of the agenda, and I said this before the meeting started, and it says Board Appreciation Month recognition. So I saw it and I thought to myself, I wonder who we're recognizing. I don't know. So I came here eager to find out. Apparently it was us. I did not know that. So to say I'm overwhelmed and humbled, I think it goes without saying. I think, to what Dr. Braverman said, I'd like to take this day, not only this, but what happened at the high school today. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but I'd like to bottle up this day and use it for all those tough days. So thank you.
I like going towards the end because there's not much new that I need to say. But like Mrs. Stam, seeing all of your faces, it just reminds me like why I do this. And it's a lot of work and it's totally worth it. I mean, the gifts are cool, but just seeing all the kids is awesome. So thank you, and I appreciate it. And we're going to make a good school year for you.
Thank you to all of you, for the staff and the students, for all the work that you put in to prepare these lovely gifts for us, and then for coming out tonight to be here. I really appreciate it tremendously. This is super nice. I do have little reminders around my house from the last couple of years from students, and it is a nice reminder of why we're here. And I would do it even if you didn't bring us these things, I have to say. But I love, for me, when we get to see students in action is the most rewarding thing. So being able to come in to read, or to, at the end of the year, we do a lot of the award programs. That stuff is the best. So seeing your faces makes it totally worth it. And thank you for all of these. I will enjoy them thoroughly.
Again, thank you, everyone. I will just make a couple of comments. As soon as the high school's baked goods came out, I kind of ripped open the box, which some of you saw happen. I did come here right from work, as some of us have done this evening, so that was my dinner so far, so thank you. It was delicious. I had one of the whoopie pies. Also, the last time we got a cactus must have been 4 or 5 years ago, and I had it for 4 or 5 years until it finally gave way and wasn't living and breathing anymore. But these things are really constant reminders of what we do on the board, and it's just something around a room or around an office that you kind of see and recognize and remember why you kind of spend all these hours around this table. The last thing I will say is to all the students that came out, and more particularly to their parents, what we saw tonight are some very good presentation skills. And some leadership skills. These are leaders from the schools, and they're here for a reason. Some were elected, some were appointed, some were chosen, and it's very important to recognize those skills early on, especially our elementary school students. And you saw some middle schoolers and a high schooler present tonight too, and that's what you should aspire to. And for our high schooler leaving us this year and going off to college somewhere next year, that's the time to continue your leadership. It doesn't end when you're out of school. It continues on whether or not you're serving in public office, like those of us around the table are doing, or whether or not you're just at work or just in the community being a coach or anything like that. So to all the students, thank you. You were fantastic tonight, and we appreciate you being here. To all the parents, continue honing those skills in your students and make sure that they know that they can be leaders and can do whatever they want to do. And hopefully we'll continue providing that the best we can. So thank you to everyone for coming out. All of the students and the staff, you are more than welcome to depart at this time and go about your business for the rest of the evening. So thank you so much for coming out. just hang on for a minute while the room clears out. Okay, we are moving on to public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. Our phones are open at 860-665-8736, although there is also a town council meeting going on, so I'm pretty sure we're not streaming right now. They can do two different at the same time? Wow. Well, our phones are open, so we'll wait for a second, and if any of our public that's still here wishes to make a statement, you're more than welcome to. And seeing no takers, we will move on to standing committee information items. We had a curriculum committee meeting on February 28th, 2018. Mrs. Guyon.
We had a great curriculum meeting. We had Jen Freese and Brian Holmes from the middle school academies come out and speak to us. They pretty much presented their programs. They talked about how they do a lot of inquiry-based research and how that aligns with the new science curriculum coming out. The aerospace, I think it will dovetail pretty nicely, and then the biomedical, they'll have to make a couple of changes, she said. But things are going really well for them. The students are really engaged and they're making great progress. They're actually, I meant to write it down, a lot the kids from the Aerospace Academy, Sharon, was it at the Invention Convention?
And they
did.
Yeah,
they did a really, really nice job. I had seen a couple of posts of the students and the great things that they had done there. So they've been really active in those types of competitions. So that was really great to learn about. We talked a little bit about what going forward, what the program will look like at the high school. And sure. Excuse me. Okay, let's see. So first play. Oh. All right. Are all of these from Newington? Yeah. Okay. So we had a first place with the startup business plan. And I apologize, everyone, for the way that I pronounced your names. I promise I'm doing my best. Kong Win in the first place innovation plan for Raya Babu, Anami Patel, and Molly Rusgrove. A second place on the Principles of Business Administration. Oh, these are high school kids. That's DECA. Okay.
They knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, they were amazing. We can talk about them later. So at the middle school, here we go, 7th graders. Okay, Ryan Claffey. Organized materials for student field trip with the field tripper. Eli Johnson, a solar water purifier, which purifies water using just sunlight. Julia, this is a tough one, Julia. Remazuski, the bungee buckle, holds swim goggles in place better than a strap. And Jack Stair, the easy jacket, allows people with disabilities to put on and fasten a jacket easily. Those were 7th graders who did really well. And then the 8th graders were Jasmine Barber with the Easy Clean, uses safe chemicals to thoroughly clean dirty pots and pans. Elise Karanian, a solar shade, which uses solar cells on windows to generate electricity. Siobhan Patel, auto jack, uses hydraulic assist to make jacking a car easier. And Vidisha Fakar, the flow alert, which provides warnings during a flood. So those are some of the things that they invented and presented, and they did really, really well. So that they should be really proud. But then, again, like I said, we talked about going forward, what the programs will look like at the high school and how they'll kind of, hopefully, starting next year, build that program up over the next couple of years. Are there any questions? No? Okay.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to our student reps, but very quickly first, for anyone who doesn't know around the table or watching at home, this is not Dr. Collins. To my right, Dr. Collins unfortunately is ill this evening, so he was unable to finish his work day and come this evening. I did see him this morning at the high school assembly for the memorial for the Florida shooting, so he did start his day hoping that he would make it all day long. Unfortunately, was not able to, but hopefully he recovers quickly from his cold. So Mrs. Maraca is stepping in this evening. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our student reps.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start with athletics. So for the ice hockey team, they made it very far in the state tournament, losing to the Staples, who seeded number 1 during the regular season in the quarterfinals with a score of 7-3. And spring sports registration closed, and sports will be holding tryouts within the next week or so. Specific to the high school, Kindness Week was a success, and everyone did their part to spread joy in the school. On Monday, students and faculty wore their sweats to say that caring for others is no sweat. On Tuesday, the classes all wore different colors in a color war so that we could show that NHS stands together and supports one another. Wednesday's theme was Have Pride in What You Do, so everyone wore their kind shirts or blue and gold to show that we are proud to be part of our school. We have had a homeroom period every day in which students have been presented with kindness challenges to complete every day. Mondays was compliment cards, where students would write a compliment on a card and hand it to someone to brighten up their day. They wrote the compliment on a second card and handed them into Stuco, and they were pinned to a board in the school, spelling out kind. On Tuesday, students created a Because I Said I Would poster in their homerooms and participated in a bucket-filling activity. On Wednesday, everyone used markers to decorate rocks with kind messages, which will be distributed to all schools in town. Also, students wrote kind messages on Post-it notes and stuck them throughout the school, and students and staff were encouraged to take the notes that inspire them. On Monday, students received Student Council's challenge cards, which have different tasks on them for students to complete to spread kindness. If students completed the task, they wrote their name on the card and dropped it in one of the Kindness Week collection boxes throughout the school. And on Friday, 13 cards were drawn to win prizes.
NHS seniors submitted their scholarship applications on Monday. There was a field trip on March 5th to DATTO in Norwalk for students interested in IT and networking. DATTO is considered the Google of the East, and students took a tour of their facility and learned more about their technology solutions as well as various careers. The annual NHS blood drive took place on Monday, March 5th, and we donated 53 pints of blood, which will save about 159 lives.
The DECA competition was a success once again. There were 14 finalists, with 12 qualifying to attend the International Career Development Conference, also known as ICDC, in April in Atlanta, Georgia. Also, the Newington chapter met the requirements for the membership campaign and chapter campaign in order to bring an additional 6 students for the Emerging Leaders Series in Atlanta.
On Monday, the students and faculty viewed a social media presentation to learn about cyberbullying and the impact of your digital footprint, whether you are aware of it or not. In our homerooms, we participated in an activity that allowed students to share any times they may have been subject to bullying over the internet and how we can prevent this in the future. In the auditorium, we viewed a presentation explaining how what we post will forever be online, so we must be careful and think twice. I think this was a great learning opportunity for everyone as we are entering a critical part in our lives where online background checks are prevalent, and many students are not aware of the negative impacts of some posts. Today, students and faculty at Newington High School took part in the 17-minute silent walkout memorial to honor the 17 victims of the Parkland shooting and promote the safety of our schools. For each minute, the name, age, and a short bio of each person killed was read, with students' pictures being displayed at desks and teachers' pictures being displayed on chairs. The chamber choir performed the song Ooh Child, arranged by Eric Venables. Excuse me. It was a beautiful display of love and remembrance, and a reminder to all of us that the people being killed in mass shootings are not just a statistic, but actual people whose lives were brutally cut short by a vile act in their school. We should all work to ensure that no one should be afraid to get an education, and that what happened in Parkland, Sandy Hook, Orlando, Columbine, and so many, many more never happens again. The Kiara McDermott Basketball Classic will be held on March 23rd. As always, teams representing every grade level will play against a team of teachers to see who are the real NHS basketball champions. Tomorrow is the opening night of Beauty and the Beast. Today, the middle schools and high school students saw a preview of the show during school, and everyone is very excited to see the whole show. And we are all very excited to show you the finished product. Parents have said that they really love the new online way to buy tickets. Shows are March 15th, 16th, and 17th at 7 p.m. with an additional matinee performance at 2 p.m. on the 17th. And the website to buy tickets is nhsdrama.booktix.com. Be our guest.
And lastly, the Martin Kellogg Jazz Ensemble was selected as the CMEA Performance Ensemble and will be performing at the 2018 Connecticut Music Educators Association All-State Music Festival and In-Service Conference at the Convention Center in Hartford in April. This honor is granted to groups that perform at a high level for their age and strand, both technically and in regard to repertoire selection. The CMEA uses a blind hearing committee to select ensembles to be models for others around the state. Congratulations to Mr. Bell and the Kellogg Jazz Ensemble.
Questions for our student reps? Mr. Sylvia.
It's not a question, it's more of a statement. I just want to commend the high school on the actions that were taken today in showing such respect and remembrance to the 17 children. It was deeply moving to be able to read comments from various individuals in the community, and I like to applaud and thank you for taking that action. And give my thanks to the administration and such for helping to coordinate such an activity. Thank you.
Further, Dr. Braverman?
We need sideways mics, I think. I always think it's really important that when you take what you believe and move it outside to, with school, with family, whatever, that you make a statement for yourselves, and you did today, and that's really important. It's probably maybe the fourth or fifth time you've done that, and there'll be many more times in your lives, but keep on learning, keep on growing, keep on making that statement. We're proud of you for doing it. Thank you.
Mr. Brandon. Ditto. Mrs. Strauss.
I just want to add, as a mom of someone who goes to the high school, how positive the feedback was. He was really concerned. He is shockingly very conservative. I don't know where he gets that from, but he came back and just had nothing but great things to say. So kudos to you guys, because I know you organized it, so nice job.
If I may I respond? Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we wanted to make sure that this event was completely non-political, and I think that's what we accomplished. And I'm very proud of how it went. So thank you.
I didn't even ask my son. Like, he just came home and he goes, "Mom, it was non-political." He was so excited. So, like, I just want a really nice job. So he was concerned, but you did great.
Mrs. Stam.
Just hearing what you did just warmed my heart. I just love the way it was implemented and how it was supported, and I think you guys did an amazing job, because I couldn't imagine how it was going to happen, and just, and I had a lot of things going on today, and I drove around a lot in different towns today because I had a lot of things to do, and I was by high schools in Hartford and like I saw like. I saw it's like a lot of media, and so I was thinking about you guys all day, and I was like wondering how it was going to happen here, and it just really warms my heart. Thank you.
You did a beautiful job, and I also got heard a lot of positive things from my son, who came back from that program as well. And I also just from your report tonight. Was it the Martin Kellogg Jazz Ensemble?
It was, yes.
I had written down John Wallace, and so thank you, Martin Kellogg Jazz Ensemble. And I love that you guys are here telling us this, because it's always nice to hear what students are doing. And you've highlighted a lot of really great things with all the kindness activities, and then just the positive things that kids are doing with DECA and the musicals, and it's nice to hear the positive things our students are doing from students, so thank you.
Yeah, every day I'm reminded, and I'm sure Prachi can attest to this as well, every day I'm reminded of how great it is to be a student at NHS. It's just such a great community of people that really try to do the most good that they can, and it's really great to see the whole community come together, especially, given the things that can happen outside of our school community that affect us. And, it was really great to see today, as well as during Kindness Week and during the social media presentation, the steps that the administration helps students to take, and the steps that students take to make their voices be heard and to make change in their community. So it's really great. Thank you.
I would see no other board members commenting. I will just say that it was incredibly powerful to be at. It furthers my confidence in the way that our students, staff, and administration work together at the high school. We do have, thankfully, a very good history of that kind of working together, and I think this year in general has been a really good example of what kind of community we have in Newington, which is really great to know. I will just make one other comment. You did mention that the song was arranged by Eric Venables, and for people who don't know, Eric is a student at Newington High School, also a very good player of an instrument, or no, he's just a singer too.
No, he plays an instrument, and he also sings.
And he sings, and he
yes.
was
he's the beast in the musical.
He's the beast in the musical. Yes. He arranged the song, so when I was in the gym this morning waiting for the program to start, Chris Clark, who's the chamber choir director, came in when I was a sophomore in high school, so we were chatting, and he said, we're performing this song, and one of the students arranged it, which caught my attention because that was certainly not something that ever happened when I was in high school in the same scenario. And then said that the students have had one or two times to practice it before they actually did it in front of what seemed like the entire school. And it was incredible. I mean, it was really good. And we just have some really talented students. We have some great leaders. I can't believe a student was arranging something and then directing it, and Mr. Clark was singing in the background with the students. And I think it's just one more example of that's kind of how our high school works today, that they let the students lead, which is a really great leadership quality for our staff and administration. So I think that should be noted, Mrs. Guyan.
Yeah, I did not realize that I just assumed that was the name on the paper, whoever arranged it. I didn't realize that was a student, because that was really beautiful.
Yeah, he's quite talented. He's phenomenal.
I just thought it was beautiful on its own, and now that I know that it was, that's just even more. Nice job.
Mr. Sylvia?
Would Eric be available to do the high school graduation?
I could definitely let him know.
Because it's boring. I'm sorry. Not to be too offensive, but just hearing a couple of speeches here and there, I'm sure you'll be great. But I would prefer it to be orchestrated differently.
Your comments will be taken under consideration, Mr. Sylvia. Seeing no further board comments, we will move on to other business. First, we have a report on enrollment projections for the 2018-2019 school year, which is always one of our favorite topics, and I will say it first, Mr. Friese, these are estimates. These are not exact numbers. This is not exactly what it will look like in the fall, but this is how we base some of our decisions on. So with that, Mr. Friese, I will turn over to you.
I appreciate the opportunity for being able to share with you the estimates, which is clearly outlined and italicized in the second sentence of the report. And thank you for the opportunity to, I hope, give a little deeper dive into enrollment information than what we've presented previously. I know at a couple of board meetings consecutively now we've talked about enrollment. We prepared and shared a chart about enrollment projections. But again, this provides some of the backdrop to where those numbers come from. So if I could take a minute just to share with you the estimates that we do get from NASDAQ, the company in New England who looks at all variable factors to be able to conclude what they believe our enrollment projections will be. When they do their enrollment projections, there are some variables that do have significant influence on class size, and they are new and future construction projects that may not yet be permitted, special education students who remain in 12th grade until the age of 21, additional open choice seats declared to meet our funding requirements, the number of students who are anticipated to return for a fifth year at Newington High School, in the number of students who return from magnet schools after the October 1 enrollment deadline. So those are variables that NSDEC cannot project in what we have here. So I will share some of those numbers with you to add to the projections, so that way we can kind of glean a sense of what that snapshot might look like for next year. So as we move into the report, I will share that we are aware that we are likely will declare 7 additional students in the open choice program. Our numbers right now at the elementary levels are a little bit high in class sizes, so we don't have the ability to declare more than 7 spots at this time without kind of over-enrolling our classrooms. We anticipate approximately 7 students to complete a 5th year at Newington High School, and there will be approximately 15 students in the Transition Academy program for next year. So when we look at the projections that NSDEC provides, and then we add those 29 additional students, that brings us to the number that we have for the projections overall. So at this time, I would share that the projections are from 4,038 students this year to 4,032 students next year, a reduction of 6 students. But then once you add the additional students that we just spoke of, it comes to 4,061 student overall enrollment projection. And then if you continue to look further down the report, what you'll find is it just gives a snapshot of what that means by grade and by school. But I think sometimes it's easiest just to go into the numbers. So if you want to take a look at the yellow packet behind the report, that is the actual NSDEC report itself, and it shows you up front on the cover page just the general historic enrollment figures, which are great kind of overall figures to use. As you continue into the 3rd page, this is the page that I generally land on most, because then it starts to break it down by grade level. And you can start to see our enrollment projections starting with this current school year and where we are now, and moving all the way through 2027-28 school year. And that kind of helps us to make some determinations on where we're going and how we might try to get there, especially in regard to staffing projections and any type of programmatic changes we might want to consider. Another page that I find, pages that I find to be helpful are if you continue going to the last 3 pages of the report, it then breaks it down by school. So you can see where Elizabeth Green shows up first, and it breaks it down from 2006 all the way to 2020, and it shows us the historical and what's projected for the future. Again, always powerful in helping us to make some predictive analytics around staffing and any programmatic changes that we might be considering. I will give you time to review the report. However, what I would share is that from the analysis here and from the information, I believe our current staffing profile is still needed. I don't see how a reduction of staffing would support the current enrollment figures. And we have been reducing in staff over the past couple of years, and that has led to increased class sizes. My recommendation and goal would be to maintain as much as possible, if not add in the certain areas that I know you've all been considering in the plan's proposals. Area of social work, psychology, for the social emotional well-being of our students, as well as the academies. I would, sorry. And I apologize for the raspy voice. I don't know if Dr. Collins and I share the same cold, but sorry, Bob. I said it is my recommendation that we maintain our current staffing to be able to maintain our current class sizes, as to not reduce which would increase our current class sizes. And I also recommend what you all are considering in the plan's proposals, which is to try to support some more staffing in the social emotional areas for our students, as well as the academies.
Thank you. I heard you say you didn't recommend it, which is why I wanted you to repeat that.
Thank you.
Mr. Sylvia?
Thank you. Mr. Farisi, you may not be the right person. I love the statistics. It says, okay, here we're being flatlined, all right? But I've got a gut feeling, given what I've experienced in my 40 years in other communities, that we're at a point where we may see what Rocky Hill experienced, which is, here comes a bunch of new families, all right? I'm sensing there's going to be a large turnover in our community. I call it regentrification. That being said, I'm very curious on the facility inventory. Do we have sufficient classrooms? Should we need a few more teachers in either elementary or middle school levels or whatever, if these projections, we have the good fortune of the projections growing. So that's where I'm kind of interested. Staffing wise, we'll match it, but I'm more worried about having the facilities, and that 2 years from now we're not bringing out a bunch of trailers.
Steve, I think the easiest way to answer that would be to say, if we look back 10 years, which we've talked about a few times, our total enrollment was about 4,500 students, and right now it's closer to 4,000. Right. So if you're saying we're going to increase the amount of students attending our schools, we can certainly handle at least that initial.
So we've got, all right, so we've got about a 400, 10% contingency in space?
Probably around there. I mean, there are definitely classrooms that are available in our elementary schools, and some of them, it depends. If 100 new students came into one elementary school, that's a different story. If it's kind of a spread out thing across the town, historically we've had more students with the same spaces, so we would make it work. You then have the issue of, well, what about the staffing for those students, which you recognized in your question, but I think that's one of the easier ways to answer.
Yeah, right. So all right, that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. Thank you.
And the only addition I might add is that we are looking to increase preschool, and we have the academies as well, which are different than what we've had previously. So that space also needs to be considered when thinking about that. But I do agree that we've had higher enrollment in the past, and we've been capable of managing that.
So, and that's a great prelude, because we're going to be facing in 2019 the guidelines from the state for universal pre-K. All right, so that's 250 or 300, 400 more students. Would that absorb all of our available inventory? Setup.
A lot of it.
Okay.
It would absorb a lot of it.
Okay, that was a setup. Yeah, but all right. So.
Those classes have very specific requirements as well in those classrooms, so we have to consider that.
Great. I would love to have a better understanding of the existing inventory, and if it can support universal pre-K, or at least to try to understand and present to the community the gaps that we may be experiencing.
So you're beating me to the punch by about a month, but as I've talked a little bit around the edges, and it's still formulating, but it's my intention as the chair to do a full investigation of pre-K and what that means and what it would look like and everything involved in that. So probably in 2 or 3 meetings, we'll be ready to kind of discuss more fully. But to answer those very big questions is not something I think is appropriate for kind of like here's a memo on what our inventory looked like. That's one point of it, but I think we are going to need to have a comprehensive look at pre-K and what that looks like, what it means, and what all the options are, and that's a multi-year process potentially.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
And that's one
Josh,
part of it.
I welcome that, because I look at that brand new business that opened up on Alumni Road, the Goddard.
Yep.
Right, and do they have curriculum or the facilities to meet the needs, and could they be integrated or not, or, and plus all the other pre-Ks that are in our community.
Yep, there are a multitude of factors involved.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, I appreciate stealing your thunder a month in advance, but I look forward to the effort.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. Braverman, you had something?
So, Mr. Freese, are we within the 1% reduction that's nationwide with our students? As far as getting fewer and fewer coming in until, 2020, whatever?
Right. So with this report, we are actually a little bit above last year's. So we are not reducing the number of students for next year. So we do not meet that criteria for next school year.
That's good news, right? And in your little chart in the middle,
Yes.
on your yellow, 2012-13 and 2013-14, well, let's look at 2013-14 had a negative 112 students. Do you know why?
Are you on page 1?
The front page, yeah. The 2011-12 had minus 68, and the 13-14 had minus 112. I was just wondering if something happened or...
I do not know, and I could go and look back. I don't know if that was one of the high years where a lot of students went to the magnet schools. I'm not certain if it was that year or not, but I can go and look. I remember we did have one very significantly high year, I recall in many of Dr. Collins' graphs of magnet school enrollment, but we can look into that.
Oh.
Thank you.
Just wondering. Thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Farisi on the enrollment projections? Seeing none, I do like Mr. Branda's style of flipping the laptop. I was just turning my head and... Okay, is everyone good there? Okay. We'll move on to a report regarding the Health Benefits Fund performance in the current operating year. And so again, for everyone, Mrs. Strohs and Mr. Branda, there are different years when we talk about health benefits. One is a credit from last operating year. One is this current year, which this report is about, which could potentially produce a credit in October of this year. And the other health benefits is what we just presented in our budget for the 18-19 school year. So right now we're talking about current operating budget, and I will turn that over to Mr. Jacomowitz.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll direct everybody to page 2 of the report. Second major caption item says Health Benefit Fund Recap 17-18. Line 2 shows that we are running a positive balance as of January 31st of $642,716. Now, everyone needs to keep in mind that we are in the transition to 100% high deductible plan environment from our previous Century Preferred environment. And the financial implication of that is with the high deductible program, costs during the first few months of each fiscal year, a large proportion of those costs are absorbed by the participating employees. So most years you have a little bit of a slower start as far as costs that are incurred, and then things will level off after everybody has reached their deductible amount for the full year. So at this point in time, we're showing a decent positive status for the year, but it is anticipated to level off for the rest of the year. I don't anticipate this to grow substantially over the rest of the year from this point forward for a potential cost number.
Mrs. Guy.
Just to clarify, does that mean at the beginning of the year it looks like, or towards the beginning of the year, it looks like we would be getting a much larger refund because the employees are paying out of pocket, and then as they reach their, I lost the word.
Deductible.
Thank you, deductible, then that's when you start to see the, our refund go down?
Well, it's really neither of those at this point. This is strictly a snapshot of this point in time.
Right, but is that what, that's what I just got from what you were just saying, so I don't know if I heard the right thing or not.
All right. The culmination of all years' worth of activity requires that all employees meet their deductible before the plan starts paying costs on their behalf. So just the structure of employees pay first, then the plan pays, has to be recognized in how you're assessing how much money is being generated.
Okay.
I'm just pointing that fact out, that we have to recognize we have 400 or 500 people who are participating in the plan, of which have anywhere from a $2,000 to a $4,000 deductible each. You know, there's upwards to $1 million of costs that are absorbed by the plan participants before the costs revert to us. So it stands to reason that we're going to do very well in the first few months of a year on a straight line trend, because the game's rigged to that particular outcome, you know, where they pay first and then we pay. So this is nothing more than observational at this point. But saying that the $600,000 status through 7 months is going to be $1 million at the end of 12 months would be overly optimistic at this point. So that's really the only point to make on it. You know, claims are all going to differ based on, you know, significance of illnesses and issues that employees and their families face. This is just an observation. You know, in continuing the same paragraph, I compared it to last year at this time, where we had $1,100,000, paragraph 3. At this time a year ago, our credit by formula was indicating we were going to get $1,084,000. That came in at $573,000. And I knew by looking at the trend lines and what the costs were being incurred, there was no way we were going to be able to sustain that. And I remember speaking of that last year, I thought our final number was going to be between $500,000 and $700,000 when all was said and done. Here, you know, we're in a much more of an equilibrium type of situation where I don't expect it to get much larger. I really don't expect it to get much smaller at this point. But, you know, claims are claims, and we really won't know until we get till June on it. Okay?
I do want to, Lou, just interject one thing. So we're talking about employees paying first, and then the plan starts paying after they reach the deductible. For anyone who doesn't know or maybe forgot, part of the teacher contract is that the board pays half of the deductible to the teachers and puts it in their health savings account at the beginning. Is it one payment or what's?
There's two.
There's two payments throughout the year that the board puts money into the health savings account for the teachers to pay money towards the deductible, and it's 50% of the deductible. So when we're saying the employees pay first, they are paying first, but 50% of what they're paying comes from the Board of Ed as part of our teachers' agreement with them. And so I just wanted to point that out, Mrs. Strohs.
Just a clarifying new question. Yep. That 50%, is that part of the, like, on the line item in the budget? Is that part of their salary?
It's part
cost?
of the benefits number.
Part of the benefits.
Okay.
It's part of the benefits number. So if there's is it a 2,000, 4,000 plan?
Yes,
So if there's a single person
Okay,
on the plan for a $2,000 deductible, they're paid $1,000 into their health savings account as part of the teacher's contract. Mr. Sylvia?
All right, just for clarity then, so it's not salary, but that 2,000 or 4,000, the contribution came from the $12 million line item that we had for employee benefits account?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, all right.
Yep. And so obviously that was part of the reason that enticed the teachers to move into the high deductible area, because they knew that they were going to be getting 50% of that deductible from the board, so it wouldn't be as expensive as often can be the case for any of us that have had high deductible plans and experienced any of that. So, and that is something that continued through the binding arbitration, new agreement for the next 3 years as well, so that will stay at 50% for the whole first 6 years of the move to the high deductible plan. I just wanted to throw that in there. Dr. Braverman?
Lou, on the second to the last paragraph on the front page of the report Dr. Collins sent us, it says, based on an unfavorable March 20th revision to the projected cost. I put a question. I didn't understand what that meant.
Speaking in round numbers, the obligation the Board of Ed has to pay into the health benefits fund is $10 million in a year. Okay? If the recalculation at this time of the year shows that that number can be reduced, the board has the opportunity to redirect those funds if they so choose. If the calculation shows it going up, where it goes, say, from $10 million to $10.3 million, we have no further obligation. We just pay our $10 million. So the essence of what that statement means.
It's kind of describing the two options that the board has. We can either keep paying the bill that we were told to pay at the beginning of the school year and wait for a credit to come in, or we can take the money in the current operating budget.
My question was the unfavorable word.
Right.
It means we don't do anything. We just, stay the course and pay our original requirement into the plan.
Do you have something, or do we want to let
No
Mr.
action
Giacomo
is
finish?
required tonight, right? This is just an informational?
Action is required 2 weeks from now,
Okay.
I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Correct, right. At the next meeting, I'll have the February numbers, and that will be the formal calculation that we will receive notification from the town on. And there will be a request posed to the board if there is any action that the board wants to contemplate. If there is, the board needs to keep in mind that they are fully on the hook for any shortfall that occurs because of that decision. In the example I gave Dr. Braverman a moment ago, that we have a $10 million obligation. And let's pretend that the calculation came in at $9.5 million, where we can redirect $500,000 of our choosing if we want to. And we say, fine, we'll take $300,000 of that and redirect it to another purpose. If something goes wrong and our claims go up, we have to repay that into the fund. And we basically are on the hook for that for every day of the fiscal year to get to that point, because we don't have the ability to overspend that account. So it's something we have to monitor very closely, and especially when you get down toward the end of the year, if you have volatile events that you're concerned with, you don't really have a lot of opportunity to react and be able to compensate for it financially if you have any decision of magnitude that's going through here. So we have to, we typically take a very measured approach on this, allow the credit to roll over to the following year, and then whatever is there is what we deal with, instead of trying to address it in the current year.
Mrs. Droz.
So in 2 weeks, after we get all the information, we as a board decide if we want to keep it where it is or allocate it for something else. Am I understanding this correctly?
Correct.
And if we decide to keep it where it is, and at the end of the 2008,
It'll be October.
Whatever, it rolls over, does it have to stay in that account, or at that point, does
So-
it go into the non-lapsing fund, or whatever?
No, so it comes back to us as a credit. So essentially, it decreases the amount of the obligation. So to use round numbers, if it's $10 million that we have in our next operating budget for the 18-19 school year, and we get a credit of $500,000, it means we only have to spend $9.5 million of that $10 million to pay the insurance company. And so we have $500,000 then in that account that can be reallocated in any purpose.
So the credit basically is with Anthem.
It's within the
whatever.
finance, it's to the health
Okay.
benefits fund, actually.
Got
And
it,
so
I understand that.
that becomes a sum of money that's not being expended from that account, and at some point will get transferred out of that account into others. So if there's special education dollars that need to get spent, that's where a pool of money can be transferred out there.
So at some point, so let's say we say, okay, we're gonna keep it in there, next year basically it becomes available for us to do something.
Correct. Just like this year, we have last operating year's credit of $573,000, I want to say. It's in the memo. That money has not been spent in our current operating budget, although it's been talked about where that's going to need to get spent based on special ed overages and the like.
Correct. And by allowing the credit to roll over into next year, there's no risk associated with it. When the credit comes through, there are no strings attached to it. It's available for your discretion.
Right. And so this is essentially a guinea pig year for health benefits, because now all of our employees are on the high deductible plan. We don't have any data for what it looks like at the end of the year when 100% of employees in that pool are on that type of plan. So, what it looks like over the last couple of months of the year will be informational for Mr. Giacomo. It's in the coming years to determine what the credit will wind up looking like at the end of the year. So obviously his recommendation is less risk. Always is less risk, and this year especially less risk because we don't know what's going to happen, and once all those deductibles get hit towards the end of the year. Are there further questions, or Mr. Giacomos, do you have anything else to present on this?
I'm good.
Okay. Any further questions regarding this? This will be an action item on our agenda in 2 weeks. So we will have more opportunity to discuss this if need be. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to presentation regarding textbooks for approval. And I will turn this over to Mrs. Maraca.
Thank you, Mr. Shulman. You do have a memo in your information that outlines what the novels are. It's called the textbook adoption, but they're actually novels for grade 7 and grade 8 at the middle level. The purpose of the textbooks is actually to provide some literature that can be used in small group, flexible group instruction. It can help with literature circles, and it also can be used by our students for independent reading. The texts are all fictional. They have a great interest for middle school age students. In the grade 7 of those 9, 4 of the texts really relate to the southern states before and during desegregation, so it's part of what students are studying, so it's that theme that they're reading on. There are 3 books or 3 novels in the selections that deal with challenges and conflict. One of them, called Wonder, is about a real-life experience that the author, R.J. Palacio, had when her son was very young, and they were in line to get ice cream, and he noticed a young boy with a facial deformity, a birth defect, and started asking lots of questions out loud, as most preschoolers do. So she chose to write the book about that. Another one of the book about challenges is the book called Rules, where the sister of a young man who has autism, she's trying to teach him what the rules are, and one of the funny pieces is she's trying to teach him that he needs to keep his pants up. So it's the challenges that are faced, and really what we have found as teachers have book talked some of those stories to see if they'd be interested, they have no gender, they're just sort of gender neutral, because girls gravitate to some of the books and so do the boys, which is nice because, again, oftentimes when we're looking at what our literature presents, we want to make sure that it's culturally responsive and that it's gender responsive. And you'll find that in all of the 7th grade and 8th grade books. The 4 books from 8th grade, one of them is dystopian, so I guess I could relate to sort of like Hunger Games. It's that, sort of darker side of fiction. Another one is really about, it does attract more of our male students, and that is, it's called The American Boys, so obviously boys are very interested in finding out what American boys do. And then there's one that is close for me, and it is Memoir of an Imaginary Friend, and I think you'd all be very proud. It's by Matthew Dix, who is a Newington resident. Actually, his wife served on our plans committee for a couple of years, and he is a teacher, I think, Mrs. Strauss, in West Hartford. I don't know, but I'm sure he's delightful. So those are the books that are being proposed by our language arts teachers at the middle level in 7th and 8th grade and supported by their department coordinator. All of the books are here. They'll be available up until it's adopted, which will again be at the next Board of Education meeting. So as long as you let me know you're taking the book, you're welcome to read it.
And I will just say that my mother has been trying to get me to read Wonder for 2 years now. She loves it so much, and the movie came out, and I didn't go see it with her. But maybe now I will actually read the book because we're buying it for our students. But these are available if anyone wants them. Just reach out, say you want to take a look at it, and they also will, in fairness, be available after they're adopted. If anyone ever wants to read one of our textbooks, I'm sure we can find one for them.
They'll be really doggy about that.
Yes, Mrs. Guyan.
Yeah, Wonder, you should read it.
I've heard.
Yeah, you should get on that. You should borrow it, because if you don't, I will.
I might. I need to fill out my free time. Mrs. Drost.
Are these for whole group readings? Are these just a couple of textbooks or books in each classroom?
Well, we have to remember that we have 4 7th grade LA classrooms and 4 8th grade. So on some of your textbook adoption forms that were presented to you, you'll see that there might be 40. So that would be 10, really pretty much per language arts teacher. They are all for small, flexible group instruction. The readability level is different and the interest level is different. And again, it's also for literature circles where students read independently and come together and talk about their text, come up with ideas, share their thinking around it, as well as independent reading.
Okay, I also need to add that you need to read Wonder. The Julian chapter should be purchased as well. It's very important. It's kind of like a chapter to that book, and Fish in a Tree is about West Hartford also. Just want to let you know.
I will say that is really interesting about how we do reading in the middle school now, and I'm sure at the high school level as well. It's very different than it was 10 to 15 years ago. I remember one time where the class was split into two and read two books at the same time, and that was a little crazy, but it's really interesting how many different things can be going on at the same time. Mrs. Guyan.
This may be premature to ask, but will any of these books be like Battle of the Books books?
Battle of the Books is for grade 6, so
Oh,
right now, no,
right.
unless it's on the
Lost
new
my
bid.
mind on that one, sorry, right.
Mr. Branda?
In terms of supplement and not replace, can you just explain that a little bit? Like, so it says this book will not replace, but it will supplement. I think it was like the Watsons. How does that work?
So the 4 books that I mentioned that talked about segregation and desegregation and what life was like if you were friends and of different color or racial backgrounds. When we look at the readability level, the text complexity, the sentence structure, the vocabulary, that is all a piece of why 4 different books are being recommended, because it will be for different types of readers and levels of readers, so students can access the text and read it versus maybe the Watsons Go to Birmingham might be too difficult for a group of students, so it would be supplemented with one of these texts. You're welcome.
Further board questions on these texts? Again, they are available. Mr. Plur, do you have something?
Excuse me. So I forget from when I was in 7th grade, but about the South and segregation and things like that. Because students are learning about that in their LA classes through literature, are they also learning about that in their social studies classes at the same time?
Not in 7th grade, they are learning about that. They've changed the curriculum at the social studies, so they're working on Western cultures in 7th grade. And 8th grade has the beginning. They're starting, actually, the social studies that you had in 7th grade, which was that first half when we would divide U.S. history in half, they're now learning that in 8th grade.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mrs. Droz?
So the different numbers that you're requesting, is that because the different level reading, like they're just kind of all over, just trying to figure out?
Yes, they are. And again, it's what the teachers right now believe are going to be the books that will be sort of on the hot list that kids want to read, and making sure they have enough copies of that.
Seeing nothing further, again, these are available for us to review, and this will be an action item on our agenda 2 weeks from now. And Mr. Brand is going to ruin the end of.
I'm sorry, I just noticed something. So just on the I think it's the Fish in the Tree, right? I see the edit on the number of copies, but I think the total cost has to be edited as well.
It does.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Seeing nothing further. Again, I'm just kidding. Dr. Braverman has something. There we go.
Ms. Maraca, when you buy 100 copies of a book, where do we keep them?
Actually, that request for 100 is an error. I spoke with the department coordinator, and I don't think she meant 100. She told me she didn't anyway. But if there were 100 copies, they would be divided up among the teachers and actually kept in those language arts classrooms where they have easier access. And then the 2 language arts teachers in 7th or 8th grade would share them if they needed more copies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We are now officially moving on to item E4, which is a discussion regarding Board of Ed funding for the remediation project. This is our recurring discussion of what's going on with the diesel spill. I will just say briefly, and I believe we are all in the email, the most recent number that we were asked to pay in invoices was $463,987.08. That is an amount that we still had available based on previous transfers, and there is still a balance of somewhere around $108,000 or $110,000 that the board has available in previously transferred monies. There was an additional invoice in the amount of $337,000 from CTR. That is not an invoice that we've been asked by the town manager to pay at this time, because it did just come in a day or two ago. That is something that the town manager is still working with insurance and is still working with our state legislators to see if there's any money that's going to be coming in from bonding potentially at the end of this month. So we're asked to hold tight right now. And I'll turn it over to Lou. There's a couple of other moving pieces that Lou has given us some information on in our white packets this evening.
Okay. Let's just start with the spreadsheet for the amount of funding status right now. And you'll see there are several orange lines that are on it. That would be your easiest point of demarcation to be able to follow along. Okay. On the first page of the spreadsheet, you'll see that on the far right-hand column of the orange line is $111,923. That's the cash resources we have available through either the insurance reserve or the board CIP account to pay bills from the remediation project. On page 2, you'll see there's 3 orange lines. The first one at the top is the unbilled activity, which is just my estimate of how much work has been done by the environmental consultants between March 1st and March 10th or March 14th for the work here. The second line is the $337,000 invoice that arrived a few days ago, which is not covered financially. And then I'm estimating we have somewhere around $200,000 of additional work from March 26th through today, March 14th, that is potentially billable to us. So between the known bill of $337,000 and slightly over $200,000 of unbilled yet incurred costs on the project, there's somewhere around $537,000 of financial needs to basically pay the project up to the current day. And we have $111,000 of cash available in either the insurance reserve or the board CIP to pay it. So there's a gap of $435,000. We're at the point where administration collectively needs guidance as far as the direction that the payment process is going to go here forward, because we have to make those adjustments in other activities in the district to free resources to pay these bills. There's not, the $435,000 available right now, plus additional costs to finalize the work that can just be tapped into. Yes, we have the health benefits credit from last year available this year, which we have not used yet, which was the $537,000 or $573,000. That is our starting point. But costs beyond that have to be set aside, and we have to have a smart, measured plan for how we're going to do that without, disrupting school operations over the next few months. Unfortunately, the decisions kind of end up in big lumps of money. There's an $800,000 potential reimbursement available from the insurance company. That may come in $25,000 a time. It may not come in at all for 2 months, and there'll be one big lump sum payment, or there may be no payment at all coming. These things have not been finalized yet. So there is, a definite degree of risk. I certainly think that we will be on the more favorable side of that, but this is not one of those you want to take and start, making bets on the odds of certain things happening. Because we have 75 days left in the school year, 105 days left in the school year, we have to start enacting those plans that can be able to pull resources to the side to address this need if we are going to be responsible to pay for it. The basic simple accounting tenet of you have to match your costs with your ability to pay it. It looks like all of this work will be done this fiscal year, so the bill comes due. I don't have the ability to spill that over and pay it at a later date and finance it. So these become elements in the overall mechanics of how we have to put together our financial plan to support this. Okay. The guidance we would get from the board, which we'll be looking for at the next meeting, will be how are we going to orchestrate this? And it gives us, the working parameters of, and essentially be a financial target. We need the board to be able to provide another $750,000 toward the cost of the project out of the operating budget. If that's the scenario, that's the outcome, then we have a target to work toward. Right now, we don't have that target to work toward, so we don't know if we're going to undershoot, overshoot, and make decisions that are not properly informed to the conclusion we want to try to get to. Everybody clear on that? You want me to go back on any part of that?
So what I want to add to that conversation is one of the first things that we've talked about as we've gone through what money is available to pay for this, where is it coming from, is that there's always an element of hope that timing would work out in terms of the work being done, the bills coming in, with insurance money coming in to create the resources needed to pay everything in a timely fashion. It's still unclear what time frame insurance payments are going to continue coming in at. I do want to let the rest of the board know that I have been working as closely as I can with Carol on the council and going through the town manager to see what's going on in terms of insurance payments, in terms of what's going on at the Capitol, if there's going to be any money through bonding available from the state. The most recent response I was given, which I can appreciate because I've asked for the same from some of you before, is to have patience for 7 to 10 days while some of these things are figured out from a timing perspective. That's one of the reasons why there's no urgency to pay that $337,000 bill that just came in 2 days ago. There is still hope on the town side that things timing-wise will work out, so there aren't additional resources that need to be expended from the board. That being said, Mr. Giacomotes and Dr. Collins are obviously working carefully to try to start putting things in process to create money by not hiring positions or by freezing certain things so that we have the ability to potentially do something out of the operating budget. I haven't heard a lot of optimism from them that we are truly going to be able to create a sizable amount of money if that's something that we need to do without school operations.
Right.
Do you have anything to add to that before I go to Mrs.
Just
Guy?
the only other major variable was the $800,000 tentative appropriation that's in next year's budget for remediation expenses. That is a next year's item. I can't control and I can't just access that because I want to. It has to be facilitated through the town budget process if those resources will actually be available to us. And that will be, number one, does the appropriation live through the budget process this year? And number two, is there an audit mechanism that they can work out that if they do need to use it and they want to use it, that everything will be appropriate?
And just so that's clear, that's talking about town CIP. There's an $800,000 line item right now for this specific project. Mrs. Guy?
Did I hear you say that there's a chance we may not be getting reimbursed from insurance?
I would say there's always that chance because until you have the check, you don't have it.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be, a bit flip about it, but they've had all the information they've needed now for over a month for our last batch of requests, which was $706,000. I sent in approximately another $600,000 a few days ago to them that met their initial standard of requirements. We only have a maximum cap of another $806,000 of resources to receive. So they have more than ample expenses. I can't see them disqualifying $500,000 of expenses on the project other than they just say we're not going to cover it.
Okay.
So I have to be hopeful that this is just the mechanics of how they're addressing a large claim, and
Okay.
Time is the uncomfortable part about it.
And then in addition to that, I think you just said we had the money from the credit, the insurance credit.
The insurance.
The health
benefits, sorry,
Right,
health
correct,
benefits credit. Isn't that money that we need to spend on special education costs?
We might need some of that for special ed. We're still working through all of the analysis that we have to do over the next 4 weeks till we get closer to budget. I don't have a absolute firm number yet. If you think we're trying to win the battles one day at a time, that if we know we have certain decisions that we need to target accumulating $500,000 of resources, it's a matter of how would we get there? Are there certain positions we can live with vacancies for a couple months? Are there expenses we can defer or cancel? Without having a true target to work toward, it's very hard to judge what's really most important, because the answers will change based on the magnitude of the money.
Well, I appreciate you doing this slowly and methodically day by day, the way you just described, because when you just said all of that in my head, I just went, oh gosh. So that's not helpful. That reaction is not helpful. I understand that. So I'm glad that you are thinking slowly and carefully about it, but I'm glad that I got that clarification, because that set off some alarms for me. So thank you for the clarification.
Mrs. Droz.
Okay, so I think this is probably geared more towards you. It's kind of both of you. So you're looking forward saying, this is what we could do to pay these bills. Are we going to be given some kind of documentation similar to these beautiful blue sheets that say, if we don't fill this position, this is the outcome? If it, almost like a mini budget process. I mean, I mean, obviously we need to pay the bill. I'm so sad. I just want to cry, because I know that, and I've been very emotional at these meetings, but that this is going to ultimately be a bad thing for our students, and it makes me very sad. So I really want to know, when we have to kind of make that decision, how it's going to affect our children.
Right, and I'll jump in first and then Lou. So one of the key points to my conversations that I've been having with everyone is everyone's on the same page that us trying to take a chunk of money from our current year operating budget is a bad idea, essentially. There may be some money that we can reasonably accumulate, and like we've done in other years, and that may be a possibility, but of any magnitude of a $500,000 or $750,000 is unlikely to be done without serious impact to what we do day to day in Newington Public Schools. I've made that very clear. The council does have other ways to potentially be funding things other than the Board of Ed expending money right now. That's one conversation that's being had. The response essentially has been, we need a little bit of time to see how a couple of things play out first before we can tell you, which, the timing of all of this is always going to be the hardest part, and so we're trying to figure out ways to do things. And Lou, if you want to jump in with the other half of the response.
Right. As far as having a budget sheet like this, the answer will be no. This will be much more fluid and situational opportunities. Something happens today, somebody resigned. What can we do with that position? We would be examining the opportunities as they come up. It really wouldn't be a wholesale examine everything, because we wouldn't have the time or the ability to even figure out how to do the trade-offs, because there's all these cascading impacts. If I do this, then what's the ripple down effect? And you have to think of it as much more of a linear process, that I have an opportunity to do something here today. I can save $4,000 doing it. Do I, enact that type of a response? And the more events like that I can accumulate over time generates a larger credit or a larger resource of funds to use for to be redirected elsewhere. As we're working down toward the end of the school year, there's about 65 school days left in the year. Let's say it's we make a decision we can do with one less special ed tutor at $100 a day, just to keep the illustration simple, for 65 days. That's a $6,500 savings. But if I can't make that decision for 4 weeks, then I only have a $3,800 savings. So time is very much of the essence on some of these, in trying to just, ramp up a start and see where we can get to on this.
Mr. Sylvia?
So there's a lot of thoughts running through my mind, basically where we were at 2 months ago, where I made a suggestion that we make a freeze on the transportation director and such. Is that such an opportunity that if we, not to eliminate, but to defer filling that position for a while, give us a few more months of that income, give us another $6,500? Is that one of the examples?
It could be an example. We have to measure the risk reward of doing certain things. If we create $25,000 of problems for a $6,500 savings,
all right.
the answer
So
is no.
risk reward means you don't want to make a decision. I'm trying to set a priority. right? My priority is I got to pay for a spill. And if deferring positions that become available as such, I would be very much inclined to say defer the position as long as we can. As far as the health benefits fund of the 573, I would like to know how much we think the special education would be.
I couldn't answer that right now.
Agreed, understood. But once we have that, I know the obligation that we have to special eds must be maintained, but to me, the rest of the money is available, prioritization-wise. Now, coming back to a timing aspect, and having worked for insurance companies, I know they're going to drag like an anchor for a long time on a lot of the funds. Eventually, we'll see it. The question is, when will we see it? So, to me, this is more of a prioritization of what we really want to try to do operationally, and if we're really going to make that commitment, I'm ready to make a commitment, but it's going to be painful in the operational. And if it's $700,000, it's $700,000, and we got to step up to the plate.
Right, but I think the other portion of that is that it's also a decision of whether or not is that a good idea in terms of the town council asking us to do something like that they know will potentially be impacting our last few months this year, and then we'll feel the ripple effects into next year for a school budget, because
Josh,
there are other ways to do things. And
it's not an idea. It's a reality. We have to pay for a diesel spill that we are responsible for. The concept, is it a good idea? We've got to step up.
I'm sorry, you're mischaracterizing what I said. So is it a good idea to do the funding out of our operational budget right now when there are other ways to do it?
If there's other ways to do it, put those other ways in front of us, because right now the only one I see is operational.
Right, it's a timing issue. So the town council, in my opinion, if this is hypothetical and there needs to be $1 million May 1st in payments, and the decision is the town council can do a short-term bond of $1 million while they're waiting for $1 million to come back in with no negative effects on anyone, or the Board of Ed can cut $1 million and hurt itself at the end of this school year and the beginning of next school year and throughout, because we are just taking things out of what we're doing, then I think that's an interesting discussion to be had, and one that I'm starting to have. So that's what I mean by, is it a good idea for us to do it out of our operational budget, which is one of the questions I've been asking and being told, essentially, we need to wait a little bit longer to see what this looks like. In the meantime, the administration's taking all necessary steps to make sure we could do something out of the operational budget if that's something that we need to do.
So right now, we think we're 700,000 short?
No, the risk window would be somewhere in the range of $1.5 million. Okay, we have about $1.5 million of resources. If we just pretend the overall project final cost will be $3 million, there's $1.5 million of additional expenses. We've got about $2 million incurred as of right now, with another $1 million to go. We don't have $435,000 covered at the moment. So if we just, for discussions, there's $1.5 million of funding that has to come from someplace.
Okay.
We have two big resource pools, potentially, one being the $800,000 of insurance money coming in, and the $800,000 appropriation that is in next year's budget. Depending on how those play out, it may end up as low as zero, or it could be $1 million.
All right.
The whole thing fully satisfied.
So the last time we sat at this table, I know Michael and I looked at each other because you were mentioning 2.5 million, right, and we were hearing 3.7 from the town manager. Mm-hmm. You're now feeling we're trending towards 3? Or?
I don't know enough to say.
Okay.
2.5 is still a possibility. $3 million to just be realistic for the risk.
I'd like to make a motion, just for consideration. And the motion is to authorize you to approach the town to ask for sufficient bonding to cover the 3.7 million.
They already have it.
Well, if they've already got it, then the question is
whether or not
can they implement it?
It's whether or not they want to do that. They've already authorized the short-term bonding of $5 million for this. They have not acted on that.
And
so it's
do
available.
Right, and I do recall the town manager saying she'd like to avoid it.
Absolutely, just like we would like to avoid
and we would like to
operational
avoid it.
spending. Right.
But given our reluctance to try to impact our current operational, unless we're ready to really jump into operational, which I don't sense we are, then the only option we have in front of us is to truly ask the town manager, could you get some bonding for us?
Right, so that's what I said at the beginning of this. That's one of the conversations that I'm already having with them about, is there a number at which you aren't going to ask the board to expend money at this juncture because it will impact operationally?
They're always going to ask us. And the question is that we have to be able to say to them, are we willing to drop into our operational or not? And
right, that's exactly the conversation that I've had over the weekend a couple of times. So, that's exactly what's going on. The administration's taking steps to be able to do the things it needs to do to try to create some kind of positive variance to pay bills out of operational if need be. Those are the kind of conversations we need to have. Unfortunately, the timing of this right now isn't very clear because there are a lot of moving parts in terms of when insurance will pay and if, I guess. Will the state come through with any money? And that would be at the end of this month, potentially. Are they able to access CIP money for starting in July 1st, before July 1st? When will the rest of the bills come due? They haven't started the digging at the edge of Garfield Street. That's been on hold for a week or so. So is that going to start next week? Will it start 2 weeks from now, meaning bills would come due May 1st or May 15th? And the timing of all of this has always been the biggest problem. So, we have 4 different things in the air to try to figure out. Lou's doing his best every day to try to figure out what we can do in our budget without seriously impacting our operational needs. Mrs. Guyon.
Lou, if we can get back to a little bit before about what Danielle had asked for, is if we have as those situations come up, and I don't even know if it's appropriate from a personnel standpoint, but as those kinds of situations come up where there is a way to save some money or create a positive variance, can we get a chart of that as it happens? I don't know if that's a reasonable.
Yeah, as far as things, sure, we could do something like that as far as knowing things that we've been able to put in the piggy bank.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of times, I would like to know, but also I think the public sometimes says, well, what do you mean you can create money? Well, and it's not really creating money, but I understand.
It's changing what you're spending.
You're talking about breakage.
If you can
potential things, yes.
Kind of show us where that comes from, I think that might be really helpful.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions on try to break this up into sections on the financial portion of this right now, Mr.
All right,
Sylvia?
so I can leave this table having a group feeling that nobody's in favor of tapping the operational budget for this current year. Okay, I'm just reading body language here. I'm not asking for a vote. I just want to get I'm not in favor of it either. And if there was any operational monies, would be what we currently have in the health benefits funds minus the special education. I'm willing to defer Chromebooks and that, but that's about it, in my opinion. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I think that's probably the pulse of the rest of the table, and I think in 2 weeks we will definitely have a much clearer picture, at least on some of the moving parts, and can have another discussion like this about what steps we do need to take.
I appreciate all you're doing, Josh, and I truly do respect the effort you're putting forth on this. Thanks.
And I'll just sum up again, the one positive note, of the bills we are being asked to pay right now, we have the money, those bills have been paid now. There is still money left in the public school CIP account to pay additional bills. Mr. Plur, do you have something?
Yes, I just wanted to say, seeing the how the board is handling this, and I can speak on behalf of the students of Newington High School, but I believe the rest of the public feels this way as well. That we should be very appreciative of how slow everything is being figured out and how thorough this has been, especially considering the potential of operational funds being, tapped into. That it's very important that these types of things are really thoroughly looked at, and I appreciate that. And thank you.
Thanks. Anything further on the financial aspect of this before I move on to a couple ancillary issues regarding the dues release? Dr. Braverman?
I just wanted to ask, logistically, how does the money come? So Chubb sends a check?
Yep, so the town has an insurance reserve, and that money, or recurring insurance, I forget the name
Insurance
of it.
reserve.
Insurance reserve. The check comes to the town of Newington, it gets deposited in the insurance reserve, and as we are paying a bill for $463,000 or so, the insurance reserve is paying out $168,000.
Right, that's what we got.
Of the money that came in. So that money came into the town's insurance reserve, and true to their word, the town then paid some of the bills with that money in this current batch of what came due. And so that's how it would happen again with, if they sent a check for $800,000, that money would go to pay out bills. We've been told a couple of times by the town manager and town councilors that in the event at the end of all of this, say the board expends another $1 million somehow, then money comes back from the state, money comes from insurance, and there's CIP money devoted to it. Additional money, like if there was projects completely over and then there's $500,000 in that fund, it would then get transferred back to the public school CIP account for the board. So that would then just essentially reduce what the board expended on the project based on insurance or the state kicking in money.
So the insurance reserve account is the town's?
It is the town's account, yes. Okay, and we can certainly pop back over as questions get asked. We still have a couple of ancillary issues regarding this. Lou, if you first want to talk about the fuel storage tank that's currently at the site.
Correct, right. When the fuel tank went out of service December 27th, it has just been sitting around one of the buildings here, out of service until we decide on something else to do with it. Yesterday, I received a proposal from the town manager asking for consideration that the tank be allowed to be installed somewhere on the premises at Milk Lane, which is where the highway garage is. I don't have a sketch or anything to share with you at this point, other than the conceptual discussion of adding it there, where then it would be our dual tank plus the town's dual tank would be available there. So if one tank happened to be out of service, or if there's a long line at the pump, you have multiple vehicles that can be serviced simultaneously. The cost to relocate it would be about $25,000 for the physical moving and prepping of the tank on the site, where they put a concrete pad and shield in place, site the tank properly, level it, do all the necessary things to get it in place. Then there would need to be a retrofit on the tank to take it from the setup it was created here, where we had the underground component, where it would transfer everything to be an above ground system, where the hoses, the meters, the new pumps and spigots would be all above ground and integrated right onto the tank. And they're talking about another $20,000 to do that work. And the town manager said that it appeared they would be able to handle the cost for the movement and relocation of the tank. But they were looking to the board to potentially pay for the extra $20,000 to bring the tank fully back into service. So that is decision I couldn't make. It really is a matter of, from a good sense standpoint, the tank is halfway through its useful life. It's 12 and a half years old on a 25-year life term. So being able to use it for as long as possible is certainly of value to us. Certainly the arrangement where if we were trying to be responsible for parts of the tank now at a remote site would really not be practical for us to consider. The town would have to take full responsibility for all aspects of tank operations over there, and we would just be a user and be charged whatever our consumption is off it.
Mrs. Guy.
I have two questions. One is the location, is that a location that's appropriate for our buses?
Yes, they have space to be able to go up there and travel.
Is it, traffic-wise in that location, is that appropriate?
It's okay, yes.
It's okay?
Right, it's just a little bit out of the ways. We have to figure we will be incurring additional labor costs embedded in our operating budget, because if it's going to be an extra 20-minute shuttle trip, take the bus up to Milk Lane instead of right at the bus garage, over the course of the year, 500, 600, 700 fill-ups or more. I'd have to figure out how many are there, but it could be, $30,000 to $40,000 in extra labor cost to run the buses up to that location all the time instead of having a tank on site on Garfield Street.
Right, and the town faces a similar issue with the police cars refueling.
And then my more obvious question is, how are we supposed to find another $20,000?
That's a very good question. The unanswered question. It's really open for discussion between the board and the town, where we want to go with that. If we are unwilling to make any further commitments.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the plan, but we already don't have.
Right. Yeah. I was asked to bring this forward, if we're presenting it to the board. So
was there any discussion on the timing of when the work would take place, or if this would be a current year expenditure or potentially a future year? Even if the work was done right now and they wanted $20,000 from the board to cover some of the costs, would that be something that we could potentially pay at a later date?
Or potentially pay off next year's CIP.
Right.
Certainly.
Or from CIP funds that are hopefully unfrozen by the end of this year.
Right. Yeah, I did not get into any specifics of trying to even do a preliminary negotiation on that. It's really a matter of the interest. I can say honestly that having the resource available for everybody to use would be a good use of the asset that we own. How we're going to get there and pay for it is really the question.
Mrs. Rose?
I'm very excited because I estimated it to be between $24,000 and $30,000 extra in labor costs. So I was pretty close. I'm like, look, I'm very excited. I would estimate that it's 15 minutes there and back, but at the time you feel like a 30-minute extra to each of the school bus drivers' days. It's just my guess. There's a lot of traffic over there. How long extra is it taking them now? Can we get that information? That's a big expense.
That's where they're fueling right now.
Yes, right. Most of the times, the refilling is set up at the end of either their morning or afternoon run. So they're running it as part of their route. They're not just picking up the bus and taking it over there, going and coming back. Really, the variables are the length the line is. If you're third in line or fourth in line, you might be 5 or 10 minutes extra compared to just being able to pull up and go.
But having a second pump could potentially alleviate some of that.
Alleviate some of that cost.
I mean, I'm just thinking $30,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but then is it over 10 years, over 20 years? It's a big chunk of money to have your buses in one place and your fueling in another. That's my only concern.
Right. But in this kind of dovetails with the other ancillary issues. We don't know where our buses are going to be in the next several years. So if anyone has any more questions about this plan, or if you need anything from Oslo, I think, I certainly think it's a good idea, and, it should certainly be used, and that's the only place it can be used right now. So that sounds fine to me. The money aspect of it, I don't know. And
leave that as an open issue. If the town can front it in advance, great, and something we can talk about later, depending on how the rest of the resolution is.
Right, and personally, I think it may make sense to see how everything shakes out in terms of the final cost and what money comes back in, and if there is money available at the end of the day because of money that comes back in after we've expended the amount we need to, then maybe that's a source that could be looked at. So that's one thing I'd be interested to hear the town manager's opinion on. Mr. Sylvia?
All right, so as I'm reading this, the town is willing to take over all operational management of the fuel delivery system, including the monitoring, or are we still monitoring this tank while it's sitting over on Milk Lane?
I don't know that. The recommendation I was making to the group is I certainly can support this. It makes good sense of an asset that we own to put it in service, but we would not have the reach to be able to do that. And part of the provision would be if you want the tank there, you are going to take over responsibility for it.
And to the other point, Mr. Sylvia, right now it's not in use at all.
It's still under our responsibility. We're still monitoring it. We're still measuring it.
There's nothing to monitor or measure. It's not being used.
It's not being used at all.
There's nothing in it. There's
nothing in it.
It's just there.
So it's a matter of taking an existing town asset and putting it to better use.
Correct.
All right, so I can support the plan, yeah.
Dr. Braverman?
Currently, the drivers are driving to Milk Lane and
That's
picking up
where
the
they've been
bus?
going since this incident started, yep. Mrs. Stam?
Can you go back again? Like, this last statement here says that if this were supported by the board, the recommendation would be that the town assumes full responsibility for all aspects of the full tank management as part of its ongoing work. But we just said that we were going to monitor that if it...
No.
No, I'm sorry.
No, so the town would take it, they're already monitoring the one that's in use
Yes.
right now, and they always have since it was put in.
Right.
They would also be monitoring this one when it's put in.
Okay.
There'd be two at the same site, the town would have full responsibility over it. Essentially, we would do what the town was doing when it was in Garfield Street. We'd be going, we'd be filling up, they'd be billing us. And that's the only involvement we would have, Mr. Brando.
So that's what's going on right now, right? We are getting billed by the town. They're handling all the fuel management. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yep. So it's the same thing as just adding a second pump.
Correct.
Okay. So as we move on to where are the buses and where are they going? There's also a memo in our packets regarding this. It's not a secret that the town, and the town mentioned it several times at their meetings, they need space for their town hall construction project to stage the construction. They view the area that's been vacated by the bus garage as prime area because it's very close. It doesn't impact the rest of their plan. That begs the question of, well, if that is something we are okay with the town doing, then where do the buses go? Which has been an issue that we've been encountering ever since this happened. We clearly need a space for them to go. One of the questions has been from the town, what authority does the board have over that property? If you think back to the motion that we passed when when we authorized the town to demolish the garage, it was very specific in that it said, this is not ceding the property back to the town, this is just to demolish it, it still remains under the Board of Ed's jurisdiction. There's a memo here with some help from our attorney's book and from the attorney saying, essentially showing the state statutes that authorize the Board of Ed to control property. In Connecticut, Board of Eds don't own property. It doesn't say Board of Education on a deed to Newington High School or on a deed for the land at Martin Kellogg. The town owns those properties, and the board then is authorized to control them. Until the board cedes them back over to the town, they remain under board control for educational purposes. Transportation is an educational purpose under the statutes. That's why the board has control over the bus garage site. It still does, even though it's currently not being used because this is a temporary situation. So there is likely a time coming very soon that the town asks us to cede control back to them. These are also discussions I've been having very frequently, which is, please help us find a location for where to put the buses. My opinion is that we want to be good stewards for the town. This having an area to stage the equipment for construction would save the town a lot of money. That would be good for the town, but if there isn't anywhere to put buses, we run into a lot of problems continuing having buses in the high school parking lot. Lou, is there anything you want to add before we open up for discussion?
Summed it right up.
So, some of the comments from the council have been that they want to use it for a couple of years and then it would go back to the board potentially, but we still have a couple of year problem. And then there's the aesthetic problem of is that a place that anyone in town really wants to have buses? Which the answer is probably no, especially with a new town hall and campus. But there are a multitude of issues in terms of what we do with buses because we have no suitable location right now. Mr. Sylvia.
Okay, so in my 30 years here in Newington, I can safely say that I know that a lot of administrations have wanted to take our bus garage and make Mill Pond Park and the waterfall that much more of a community aspect. All right, so strategically speaking, another location would be great. Now, the question that's really there is like, okay, where?
Yeah.
And I mean, I can make 1,001 suggestions and I'll get 1,002 no's. And I think that'll be an interesting discussion or should I say, exploration. I want to be a good steward for the town also and say, hey, here's your staging area, guys. But we do need to try to find a solution or get some sort of feedback or suggestions, either from the town engineers or from the, somebody.
So that's exactly what I've been portraying on behalf of the board in conversations about this. And there may come a time where we have an executive session to discuss property, but there have been properties that have been put out there to me, and I've been discussing with the administration about, are they appropriate, are they acceptable, is that something that can happen? The town has been helping in that pursuit. The town manager has been involved, the town engineer, our economic development director, have all been kind of looking through, and I've been asking them to get more information about, are there costs associated, are these leases, are there purchases, are they currently in a state where buses could be, and trying to churn back through the current town-owned properties, what's available, what can we fit, because the only way we can cede back the bus garage property to the town is if we have a firm plan of what we're going to do.
Right. And then, but the firm plan, Josh, becomes somebody's got to cut a check, and that's another million just for the land. We haven't put asphalt down, we haven't put any electricity yet, or anything else, so.
Could be. So there are, again, just as this is how I always hoped it would be when we started this board term, there are 50 different moving targets on this individual question that are ancillary to the other 50 questions that are in the air on the others. The only thing I can say is that thankfully the town has been a good partner so far in this endeavor, in that they want that piece. We just need somewhere to go, and they are trying to help. And so, we're taking it day by day.
I'm talking out loud, but mine's more of the message to the public, is that the remediation expenses we've got to prepare them to say, we got some more beyond the either 3 or the 3.7 number, because we've got to find a place for buses.
Right, and that's part of the, if you remember Mr. Bashan's comments at probably 6 meetings in a row, if we're saving $90,000, does that take into account finding a new place for buses or rebuilding a garage? I don't think it does, because it's not accounted for anywhere. So that is certainly an expense of, if the town wants that piece, it's good for the town. They'll save money on the town hall rental project, but that means there can be an incurred expense to move the buses.
Yes.
So that's something that desperately needs to be figured out. Again, our administration and the town's administration are working relentlessly. When there's something that can actually be proposed to the board would be the time that we would likely sit in an executive session to discuss property issues, because that's one of the exemptions to the Freedom of Information Act, because we don't want to talk about the properties that we're potentially, or the town is potentially going to be leasing or purchasing, so that we don't give anyone on the outside world a heads up on what the price points will be, so someone jumps in and undercuts us. So that's the update there. Mr. Plord?
I have a question, and it may just be because I'm not completely familiar with how this would work, but if you were to cede the property back to the town, is there something in place, or are they showing willingness to be able to pay for a new bus garage being built, or would that all fall on the Board of Education?
That is a wonderful question that I don't have an answer to. Just like most of the financial questions this evening, with so many different moving parts, it's very hard for anybody to say we have $1 million or whatever it would be lying around to do anything. We're talking about expending a lot of resources because of this. The town has been expending a lot of resources because of the state budget hole. No one knows what the legislature is going to do this session. Who knows? That would potentially be some kind of negotiation between the two bodies. Maybe there is money coming back from, maybe there's additional money coming back from someone, insurance or the state or otherwise, that could be repurposed for, any number of things that are going on right now, and we just don't have any.
That's a pipe dream.
Yeah, you are. I am. 7 years into this, I'm still a little optimistic.
I'm glass half empty. You're glass half full.
That balances out that we both
have
half a cup.
The reality is the money needs to be spent. The question is who's going to be cutting the check?
Who's going to be cutting the check? Always. So I don't know. Project.
God
Like Matt said, he's unfamiliar with it, and I'm also unfamiliar with the topic, but I was wondering, for the new bus garage, would we be building it on property that the town already owns, or would we be buying property?
So there are plenty of discussions about is there town property that is acceptable from a safety standpoint, and what will it cost to put it up to the type of thing that we need to do? Are there properties in town that could be purchased and or leased in the short term, at least, while the staging of the town hall construction goes on? So I don't know. All three options are being discussed right now. Mr. Brando.
I think we keep saying bus garage. It doesn't have to be a garage, I think,
right, and
just to be clear on that.
And I would say in none of my discussions over the last week has the building of a garage come up at all.
Ground.
It's really just finding somewhere to actually place the physical buses. That's
Thank you. That's a nice clarity.
Yeah, that's not the high school parking lot, but that would potentially be something down the road that we would want to have.
Right.
Who knows? Yep.
Another question.
Sure.
So I don't know if anyone knows, but how soon would the buses be relocated?
Hopefully very soon. But
So-
I don't really know, but we're running into issues as the end of the year comes up when the Scholars Breakfast happens. Do we have enough parking at the high school? The kind of the final date is when potentially marching band starts, because there's nowhere else marching band can practice that we know of right now that wouldn't cause an incredible inconvenience and potential cost of shipping kids elsewhere. So, does it have to be before the beginning of next school year? In my opinion, absolutely. Is it possible that it's before the beginning of next school year? I just don't know. Dr. Braverman.
So currently, half the buses are at Milk Lane and half are at the high school?
Some of them are still on Garfield Street that fit
Yes,
in
about
in the
1/3
garage
are
that's
in-
still standing.
Are in Garfield, and the other 2/3 are at the high school right now.
Okay, so nothing's at Milk Lane at the moment?
Nothing is at Milk Lane, and I don't believe there's actually space at Milk Lane for any of our buses.
Right. One thing the board just needs to just keep in mind is the high school is the biggest single facility in town at 270,000 square feet with approximately 1,000 parking spaces that are adjoining it. That's not easily duplicated. And even though the site here is going to be a much smaller building, about 75,000 square feet as far as a new town hall with, I'm not sure the parking space count, but let's say it's 600 that's there. The demands that we have elsewhere, it's not that nimble of an operation where we can just pick up and put 6 buses here, 6 buses there, and try to control logistics and coordinate everybody coming and going. Like Scholars Breakfast, where we have an influx of 300 to 400 more cars, we're going to have a problem that day in the current environment. And it's a matter of how many problems we can logistically overcome that are reasonable. If it's a matter if it's chaos for parking every day for everybody, that doesn't really work. So there has to be a balance as far as this is the biggest single entity in the town overall, and we have to make sure we take care of it in that fashion.
Is there anything further on everything that we've been talking about? Okay. We will move on to, this is actually now my new favorite agenda item that we've ever had, and I'll explain why in a minute. We're moving on to action item 5, which is the budget reconciliation item. If someone can read the motion so we can discuss. Mrs. Guyon?
Move the Newington Board of Education adjust account 2310-611 by adding $80 in order to reconcile the amount transmitted to the town.
Seconded by Mr. Brando. We'll open up for discussion. Mr. Jacomowitz?
I screwed up. Keep it simple. All right. When we had the discussion a couple weeks ago on the $174,000.
It was the $40, wasn't it?
$40. Yep. I moved it the wrong way, so it ended up being an $80 adjustment. The transmitted amount is correct to the town. Our detail doesn't balance to the transmitted amount. This is just to add an $80 into the 2310-611 line item to get the two synchronized.
So, and I'll add a little bit further. So that account number is the Board of Ed supplies where we house the new plans proposals. That's the we had the mistake first on how much money it was, then Lou made a mathematical error. I'll let you know why it's my favorite. When I was doing my budget presentation to the town council, and this is something I swear I never do, I was adding up, I have a chart that says the major factors and what all the percentage increases added up to, and I added up the dollar amounts that I knew we passed, and I triple checked everything, and I added it up, and it was $80 less than the number that we actually had, the overall number. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, I know I did this right, but it's off by $80. But I don't feel like saying anything to anyone, which is not something I ever do. I should have just sent an email saying, hey, why is my math off by $80? I thought I did it right. And then I saw this pop in, and I knew it was $40 one way instead of the other.
Right.
And I figured it out. So that's on everyone, Mr. Silva.
I'd like to go on the record to say that I oppose Lou screwing up anything.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's out of order because that's not the motion that's on the table.
Oh, my apologies.
Is there any further discussion on this very simple motion? Again, this is the number that went to the town council is the right number. We just need to change our detail a little bit. Anyone? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. Our phone is open at 860-665-8736. And we'll just wait a moment. There's no public in the room. When we can start with remarks by board members, and I will cut Paul off if the call comes in, but I won't cut anyone else off. Mrs. Guyon, let's start with you tonight. Oh, never mind. I never know how to do this. You're on with the Board of Ed.
Rose Lyons, 46 Alton Drive, and I was rooting for Mr. Vasella to be called on first, but it didn't work, and I wasn't fast enough. I just have to make an observation as someone who has been watching Town Hall Reno for the last 6 years. In the first meeting I went to, out of the first of 7 schemes that was presented, the town bus garage was airbrushed out of the picture. And Mady Kenny asked them to please present the project as they saw it being completed. 6 years later, they could have kept that airbrushed bus garage out of the scheme and all would have been well. It's too bad that in hindsight they didn't go for it 6 years ago, and then maybe we wouldn't have had the diesel spill and everybody would have been happy. But like I said, that's hindsight. But as I watch and see in 6 years of planning for this town hall renovation, I hope in my lifetime that it comes to be. And just thank you all. If I didn't thank you before for all your hard work on the budget, and I thank you again and again and again. It's not an easy task. And Mr. Shulman, I happened to catch the last part, or part of your comments when you were going over the diesel spill the last time, and you said you were trying to slow down because you got yelled at by Rose the last time. I'm going to tell you what I used to tell my daughter when she said, Mommy, please don't yell at me. And I would say, Suzanne, when I'm yelling at you, you will know it. I wasn't yelling, just making an observation that you were going pretty fast, but if you were ever to find another profession, an auctioneer would be your job. You're doing a fine job slowing down, so keep it that way. And once again, thank you for everything. Take care. Bye-bye.
I actually did do an auction one time for charity. It was pretty fun. Mrs. Guyon, if you would like to start your comments.
Sure. I think I already said most of what I wanted to say. The only thing would be I went to a PTO meeting at Elizabeth Green. I think it was last week. It could have been the week before. It's really hard to say at this point, but it was a really, really nice meeting. Our PTOs do a fantastic job, so I want to thank them for their hard work in supporting our students. Josh, I want to thank you for the way that you have been really proactive in working with the town council and really making the effort to partner with them. That's something that we had talked a lot about, is making sure that we were building a better relationship, because it's important. It's important for us, it's important for them, it's important for the town. So I wanted to acknowledge the work that you've put into that. And I think that it's people don't always see that, and I just wanted to say I noticed, and nice job. Thank you.
Mrs. Droz.
All right, so I got the awesome appointment by Mr. Schulman to be on the Youth Adult Council. And so we had a meeting. It's a lot of fun. And so there's a strand to this. So one, I want to do a shout out for Hoopla. So Martin Kellogg, people, they said that the enrollment was a little down. So if you can get the word out, if you know anyone at Kellogg. So they're looking for that to be up. And the Hoopla raises the majority of their money for the year, and the Youth Adult Council sponsored, like, helped pay for Mr. Driscoll to come in and do that, what you just talked about, the online security. They're doing a thing for the town about the opioid crisis, and they just do some really neat things. So please get out there and support the Hoopla. Go, even if you're not in it. So that's my thing for that. I did promise them I would do a shout out for that. But with that, there's kids on it, just like here. And so the thread that I have to state is you guys are awesome. The ability of this town to, and I use the word raise, you're raising leaders. So I'm new to the board, I take no credit, but just I hope that we can continue on that, because you guys, whether it's here or there, like, it's amazing. I would be terrified to talk in front of adults, and you guys are phenomenal. So I just want to thank you, thank the town, and I would like to thank whoever added my clock back. So that's all.
Mr. Brando.
Congrats on your appointment. I hear those are tough to come by.
Well, you know, it was awesome, so.
Read Across America was awesome. That I was lucky enough, I actually got to read to both of my daughter's classes. They set that up for me, so both teachers did not tell the kids, and so I walked in, and they loved it, and the kids were awesome, and I know a lot of us, if not all, got to do it, so that was an awesome experience. And the only other thing I have is I promised I would do a shout out for Project Graduation, April 6th, Adult Comedy Night. The cost is $25. It's at the Polish American Club, and it's all over Facebook, so look for it. And I was told maybe we could try and get a Board of Ed table or group to it, so maybe we can. We'll see.
Mr. Tufel?
Nothing at the present time.
Mr. Plord?
Mr. Branda?
Mr. Sylvia, we got.
I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. You're fine. That's all right. It's okay. It's okay. I don't know. I appreciate your comments, Ms. Drost. And I would also want to say, like I said in the beginning, I'll reiterate it again. I'm so proud to be a student at Newington High School, and a student in this school district, because the amount of care and concern for the students who are living on your policies and on your budgets or whatever it may be, those voices are really taken into consideration, and that's highly appreciated. And just one last little shout out for my own Beauty and the Beast tomorrow. So tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday at 7, and Saturday at 2 o'clock as well.
What part do you have?
I'm Lumiere. I'm the candle. Okay. Yes. Oh no.
Well, there he is.
Hi.
Ms. DeVay?
I agree with everything Matt had to say, as well as going to see Beauty and the Beast. I'm seeing it Saturday night, and I'm so excited. Also, with all of the Board of Ed appreciation, I don't know if you guys know this, but we appreciate everything that you do so much. And I've lived in Newington, I don't know, since kindergarten, and I never knew how much you guys do, and now I truly know. And I remember, I think it was probably 4th grade, I presented a gift to the Board of Education. It was like a little poem or something, I don't even know. But we appreciate you a lot, and thank you for everything that you do and all the time that you take out of your day.
Thank you. We're now going to have to ask NCTV to find the video of that board appreciation. You said you were in 4th grade, so 8 years ago? We'll have to find that. Can we like send a letter to NCTV to see if they can find it? It'd be a March meeting. I don't know how long they have it, but we'll see. Mr. Sylvia.
First off, I want to come back again and thank you again for the manner that you guys held today's remembrance. It was very classy, and I appreciate it deeply. Second off, I want to let you know that this is a subversive plan. We're setting you up for your future leadership role, and you're going to have to be in our seats in the future, so pay it forward. On Mr. Branda's idea of having a Board of Ed, I'll let Ms. Sharon Lakota know publicly and on tape. I will buy a table of 8. I believe it's $25 a seat? Yes. All right. I'll buy a table of 8 for the Board of Ed to attend the NHS comedy, right?
Yes, and it's BYOB and BYO snacks.
BYOB? Okay, and I'll bring along a beverage of your choice.
Let's leave that as a private conversation.
But, please make your calendars and mark it as such. And first 8 seats are, let me know. Thank you. Oh, you're invited also. So first 8.
April 6th. Mrs. Stam?
I too just want to put a shout out there to all the PTOs. I was able to go to Anna Reynolds' PTO last week, and we just totally appreciate all the things that you do to, have all that enrichment activities for the kids and the parents, and you don't know how much I think that is just awesome that you do that for everybody and for all the schools. I do want to appreciate, just to let you know that I do appreciate your comments and your questions. You guys are really sitting there thinking, and I really appreciate the fact that you're actually participating and you have great questions, and don't ever think that they're not great questions, because anything you don't understand, you want clarification, is worth the question and worth knowing. I do appreciate that. And it was a great evening. This was really lovely, and I just want to thank everybody again for the appreciation, because I think we all around this table just like doing what we do, because it just makes us feel involved, and we all really, really value education. And so this is great, but we like what we do. Thank you.
Mr. Vasella? Dr. Braverman?
So I'd like to thank our 2 student reps. You really keep us grounded, at least me. I think everyone at this table. I appreciate everything that you say, and you bring the high school to the table, which is really important. So thank you for that. I'd also like to, I'm proud about the Invention Convention and DECA. Those are initiatives that were not in place when we, last 2 years ago, 3 years, Invention Conventions maybe 3 years, but DECA's newish, I think, reinvigorated. And those are things that I've been involved with for a long time, and I know how important they are. So I'm proud of Newington for doing that. And I want to appreciate the appreciation for all the schools. It's really nice. It really makes us special, feel special. So thank you to all the schools. If you're still watching, not in bed, thanks again.
Just going to go back to Mrs. Stam for a second.
This is kind of really silly, but I'm going to tell you that Snow Monster was in Newington the other day, and it was so cute to see it. We had a bunch of kindergartners there, and they're studying weather. And actually, I'm very mushy. I'm in my kitchen working, and I'm watching this, and I welled it up because I just thought it was so cute and so adorable. And I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Mrs. Guyon had something to add?
I did. So I am going to see Beauty and the Beast this Saturday afternoon. I'm super excited. And in addition to that, and although I'd love to take you up on your offer, Steve, I will be at Martin Catalog seeing Annie on that evening on the 6th. So Annie, they're also selling tickets right now. Their performances are on the April 5th, 6th, and 7th. And I know those tickets are going fast also. So I just wanted to give them a plug also, because I know both programs are amazing, and I'm looking forward to both shows.
Since I open it up to seconds, I'm going to start enforcing the one talk rule soon. Okay, my comments. One, for all the gifts we have tonight, there are boxes, so we can pack them up easily, and instead of trying to carry them all out. Second, although this meeting did not talk about our budget for next school year. Those conversations are obviously still going on. I will let you know that the response from the handful of town councilors that I've spoken to since the presentation has been incredibly positive about what we presented to them as a budget. They feel that we all did a very good job of telling them why we need things and breaking it down simply. And so that's a credit to our administration and to us around the table for making those decisions. And although they're talking about large numbers and they're not comfortable with where it is right now, they understand our needs, which I think is the most important step. So we're definitely still working with them. I've been emailing back and forth with our administration pretty much relentlessly about ways that we can find where is there other things that we can cut that we haven't talked about yet, so that we have options for us to discuss as we go through. That this is obviously an important month to try to formulate those ideas. Next, for anyone that is present at the Common Night together at a table socializing, don't talk about board information. That would be a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. Social topics only. And lastly, Dr. Seuss Day, my favorite day of the year for the last 7 years. I read the Lorax for the 7th time, and it was my 6th time reading it to Pat Olson's first grade class at John Patterson. Pat's daughter was one of my closest friends, K to 12, and it's been pretty incredible getting to be in her classroom, seeing how first graders now are in school, and they're kind of leading their own discussions afterwards. They have key questions they're thinking about. They have student-led discussion, asking other students to respond, going deeper into thought, then pairing up again to discuss ancillary topics. It is remarkable to see. I also saw them do a noodle? You know what I'm talking about?
Brain break.
A brain break, which some of you have younger kids who have seen this, but I think that we might do one at a future board meeting. It was like a 2-minute thing for kids to kind of change up what they're doing in transition so they're out of their seat and being a little more active, and it's just not a concept that existed several years ago, and it was really incredible to see. But one of the other reasons I wanted to mention Pat Olson is that was the last time I'll get to read for her first grade class, as she and another teacher of the year, Carol Duggan, past teachers of the year, are both retiring this year, which is, I don't think there's any other teachers of the year leaving this year, but that's an incredible amount of expertise leaving our district at the end of this year. And teacher of the year, as you can see, I had a handful of these teachers, and to lose those kind of staff members will hurt our district. But I talked to Mr. Gatos about losing Pat after I read to her classroom, and he said you can never replace her. But fortunately, there are so many young teachers coming up through the ranks and to fill those shoes, hopefully, over the years. So I just want to shout out to Pat, and I did say she could bring her family to retirement dinner. I don't even know if that's true. I just wanted to see Liz if she was around, because I know she's in town. So, sorry, but maybe teachers of the year should bring their whole family. I don't even remember how it works, but that's sorry about that to everyone. So that concludes remarks by board members. With that, I will call for a motion to adjourn, made by Mrs. Droz and second by Mrs. Guyon. All in favor? We are adjourned at 9:24.